You're muted, Tom.
So let's finish this up. So where we left off, we created this all students method in our school class. So when we instantiate a new school called Richmond High, comes into the school class, comes in the init, assigns the name Richmond High to self.name, comes down to the self.students, executes the student.allStudents method, which is a class method located in the student class. So it jumps over here to the student class, into this all students method, creates an empty array. This is where we open up the CSV file at this path as a student file, calls this csv.dictReader on the student file. So it's just a bunch of dictionaries of students. Now we loop through the student reader for student info. We grab each individual student that's located in our students.csv file. For each student, which is a dictionary now because we use dictReader, we create a new student instance that passes in a dictionary of keyword arguments of name equals Lisa, age equals 25, role equals student, school ID equals 13345, the password of X. Then we append that student instance to the student array, and we return that array. And down here in the terminal, this is what the output is. Now we just got to repeat that for staff. So in staff, what do we need to import? We import CSV, import
Copy and paste stuff and
OS path. So you just copy and paste all this. Copy and paste staff. And this part, except we want to change, instead of students, we're going to change the CSV to staff. I'm going to copy this over as well. Well, I'm just going to def all staff method, all staff array equals, and then essentially copy this all over. Like that. So with open path student file, let's create the staff file. Student reader, call it staff reader. Student info, call it staff info. Student array, call it staff array. Staff array. And new student, we don't want that. We want new staff. And instead of student, we want staff. This is a class method. I think we still have to pass in self. I think that's it. Let's see. Now, in order to test it, we got a runner, print. Let's do staff. Down here in the terminal, clear. Python runner. Uh-oh. Instance. Where did it break? School, Richmond High, school, staff, staff info, super init, staff info, takes in exactly one argument, the instance to initialize. How is that different? Inside my staff.
In your all staff line 13, you're importing staff again, or importing self.
So on line 13, that self takes them, so where's students? It's in the init. So right here, I see it. So So is it staff info? Clear down here. So I only had staff ID. I need to extract the staff ID keyword from the keyword argument that we're passing in. Still wrong. Super init staff info. Line 9. Is that right?
Check the
So,
name of your actual.
I'm
and
not-
staff ID.
So it's right here, line 9. Argument the instance to initialize. I didn't inherit. All right, cool. We're still not. Staff ID is wrong, so let's look at what we need to call that. Let's look at
Employee ID, I think it is.
employee ID. Great. Employee ID. All right. So there's our staff, and there are our students. Students, staff. Any questions on how to load data into the school object?
So I feel like this is a basic question. When are we using init?
So when are we using init?
Yeah.
Whenever we want to initialize a staff instance with variables that we want that we want to use throughout the application.
So anytime we're creating a new
Instance.
Okay.
Yeah, instance variable. So this init method is called every time a new staff member is initialized. So I'm coming down here, I'm calling the staff, all staff. So I'm not actually initializing a new staff object. I'm coming in here, and all staff, but down here, I'm creating a new staff instance, which every time I call this method, it comes up here, calls staff, calls the initialize, because that's the first thing that's always called every time you initialize a new instance. And then we're passing in all that staff info. Does that kind of help?
I think so.
Yes.
So, like me and Ian were able to run this without actually calling init in staff and in student. Is that because, is it in Python, the super called regardless if we don't have it? Because we're able to pass through all our arguments or parameters through the student, and it was still getting passed to person without having an init. It kept breaking at the time because we didn't know about super.
So you didn't include this?
Like our init function was completely crashing when you're doing it for staff and student. So we just didn't have a init function at all for them. But we were still able to pass the arguments for person, and it was still able, the objects were still able to
Let the IDs.
like set, yeah.
Right.
So-
So, like when we created the class person, we also had an ID in it. But then, so like when a staff member a staff instance is created, the ID gets translated to employee ID. Whereas if a student becomes created, the ID that's passed into persons becomes the school ID.
Huh.
Because the child class, the init there overrides the class init. That's why you need super to
Right.
do that.
I mean, if you got it to work.
Yeah, we were just wondering. 'cause
Yeah, I don't
we were
know.
trying to run it, and our init function was working. I'm assuming that's because we didn't call super init. Yeah, but somehow it was able to work like without it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I've never tried that before. Any more questions? All right, I'm gonna stop.